Hitting the record button. Dorothy Blake, Distinguished Toastmaster DL3, is currently a member of Henderson Toastmasters. Since joining in 2009, she has been a club sponsor, a club coach, a club mentor, as well as a workshop presenter. Throughout the years, Dorothy has been recognized for her leadership contributions in the Ohio district of District 40 and an area director, the California district of 52, and here in our very own District 115. Most of Dorothy's working life was spent in Brussels, Belgium, as an international school teacher and administrator. Now Dorothy teaches yoga and meditation practices, loves to travel with her Toastmaster husband, Alan, and treasures their 2 grown sons and 2 grandchildren. Dorothy is pleased to be with us this morning, especially as she recently fractured her hip and is now on crutches. She will present, "So you've joined Toastmasters, now what?" Distinguished Toastmaster, Dorothy Blake.
Thank you, Carol, and to all my fellow Toastmasters and any guests. Can everyone hear me fine? Good, thumbs up, great. Well, welcome again. And yes, I appreciate whatever it took you to get to this meeting today. I know that the past couple weeks and the several past months have been a challenge for everyone. Now, the good news about me and my hip is that last week the surgeon removed the 8 staples and my leg is still attached. So everything is looking up here in 2020 as we close this out. I'd like to see you, if it's okay for you to turn your videos on. I would love to see you because this presentation is about you. I will be asking you to wave at me, to add to the chat box, and to give me some feedback throughout the presentation, including some question and answer. So I appreciate that very much. I think I will attempt here to share my screen if I have been given permission. And I'm hopeful that you can see that.
Nothing yet.
Okay, I'll have to ask my well-experienced husband to come in, please.
Your IT person?
Yes. And my man without crutches, Alan Blake.
You've been allowed to share your screen?
They said so, yeah.
I'm not sharing it with this.
Okay. They can still hear us, so that's
okay.
Good.
Get into the main screen.
Okay, there we are.
Now you have to click on share screen.
Okay, that's what I did.
Okay, desktop. Share.
Yes.
Okay, you've got to go into system preferences.
Oh, dear.
Quickly. Go to system preferences to allow Zoom. Not there, here. There.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that needs an IT person.
Now,
makes me feel so much better.
Now you have to click on Zoom wherever Zoom is. There you go, click there.
All right.
Now, okay.
Do that later.
Later. Now you're good. Lock here again. Okay, now you're good. Go back to the main Zoom screen.
Diane, I think you're right. I think that's what husbands are for, is to help us out with those technology issues.
What's funny is I'm the person who taught IT, and Alan said, "Oh no, this will just work perfectly.
No, you
don't need to test it."
Well, you're on and we can see all your notes.
Yay. Oh, well, I don't want you to see my notes. I'll get out of that and I'll get to playing the slideshow. Yay. Okay.
We are good to roll.
We're good to go. So I wanted you to wave at me if you are a brand new member. Can you wave at me if you're a brand new member? All right, and thumbs up if you are an experienced Toastmaster. Great, okay. So this presentation is for all of you. It says so you've joined Toastmasters, now what? But isn't that a question that we continue to ask ourselves as we continue on our Toastmaster journey? So this presentation is all about you. What we'll be discussing will be your own personal goals, how you can succeed in Toastmaster when you have a mentor, an explanation of all of the club meeting roles, important, especially for new members, leadership opportunities in Toastmasters, how you as a new member can get support from your club, and what is that term called club culture. And finally, there'll be some time for question and answer. So looking ahead here, as a Toastmaster or an officer, your objective is always to help meet your members' goals. And that's in particular true for new members. So if everyone would take a moment to go into the chat box and type in what your personal goals are in Toastmasters. And Carol, I'm going to ask you to moderate that a little bit because for some reason I can't see the chat box right now or the toolbar. Ah, there it comes down. Thank you.
Become a paid speaker, become a more confident and better speaker. I'd like to have a 14-year-old to borrow. I think that was for the tech. Have fun.
Perfect.
Mine happens to be help all members of District 115 get out of Toastmasters why they got into Toastmasters.
And these are great, all great goals in Toastmasters. Now, can you see the chat group on my screen?
No.
Or not? Oh, that's useful. Thank you. Okay, that's great. Now, I know that we have at least one new member on here, Natalie Hill. And I know that because I just started mentoring her last week. So I'm going to take the liberty, Natalie, of using our Toastmaster mentor protege relationship to reference a little bit as we go through this presentation. This is an example of that Toastmaster new member profile that's available on the toastmaster.org website, or you can simply Google Toastmaster new member profile and download it. Last week, I asked Natalie to complete that form, and we have begun our mentor-mentee relationship because it's first important to know what a Toastmaster's goals are, and then, of course, you can help them. So one of the first things that you need to do after you've completed that new member profile, which again is available on toastmastersinternational.org or just Google it, is to request a mentor. Now, a mentor is an experienced Toastmaster in your club. And as a new member or even an experienced member, you can always ask for a mentor to help guide you, encourage you, and support you to meet your goals. If you do get a mentor, especially as a new member, you will achieve more than you ever could imagine. Certainly in our relationship with Natalie, my relationship with Natalie, I told Natalie, look, I'm here to help you through your level 1, and we can chat as it suits you. But tell me, how do you work best? Are you looking for a mentor who will just be a little bit laid back, allow you to set your own goals, determine what you'd like to achieve? Or would you like a mentor to get out the calendars together and think about how to plan through your next speech, your next evaluation, and all your leadership roles. Well, Natalie said she preferred the latter. So we went ahead and planned out through November and December, looking into January, so that she feels that certainly by the end of December, she probably will be finished with level 1. Now you can request a mentor from your VP of Education, any club officer, or you might simply reach out to a member who you'd like to work with. And that time is a finite time. Perhaps, as Natalie and I did, we decided that after level 1, we can either decide to continue or maybe switch to another member to help you and mentor you going forward for the next. So right here, I would like to pause and just ask, does anyone have any questions about mentoring, how a mentor can help you, how that system works?
Dorothy, I am lucky enough to have a mentor. I actually have 2 mentors, and I'm actually lucky enough to be able to mentor. So it can go in both directions. It doesn't just have to go in one.
That's so true, Carol. Yeah, thank you for that comment, because throughout our whole Toastmaster experience, even after DTM and on, there's always a chance to nurture someone else and be nurtured by someone else. And of course, it is one of those leadership roles that Toastmasters does ask us to do. Well, if you have a question, you can always save it for a little bit later as well. So just keep track or add them to the chat line, and Carol will help you. Now we'll go on to the section about club meeting roles. There are at least 9 club roles that you can sign up to take in a Toastmaster meeting. And each one of them has a specific responsibility or a skill set. So a first question for a new member might be, how do I sign up for roles? Well, in your club, is this through your website, your Free Toast Host website? That's how it is through our club website. Do you go through your VP of Education? Or maybe you could sign up through your mentor. But in any case, it's encouraged that new members start taking roles at every meeting. Now you might wonder, what are the Get Me Started roles? Well, the ones that I've listed here on the screen in bold are those ones that Toastmasters and I recommend you start out with. And we'll look at each one individually. But there they are: Grammarian, Counter, Timer, and Table Topic Speaker. Now, some clubs have other roles too, like Joke Master or the Educational Minute. And these are often good roles for new members to take on as well. So let's start with the Counter. And we'll go through these Get Me Started roles first. This is a good one to start with. There's many resources online on how to complete this role. There's even an Counter script and a log of keeping track of ahs and ums. Now this role has specific skill set of active listening, speaking to explain what the role is, and to follow up with a report at the end of the meeting. Now, personally, when you're doing an Counter role, I'm careful not to get too particular, especially for brand new members, and for certain not for guests. For guests, they might want to know what their Counter, but if they have 50, I wouldn't embarrass a guest by giving an Counter report. But for a new member, or even an experienced member, if someone has one I probably wouldn't say it in a meeting. I try to stick to the words that they frequently use or run-on sentences, so's, and continuing if it really disrupts the flow of their speech. That's me. But counter is a great role to start with. Another role is Grammarian. Again, there are resources on Toastmasters International with a Grammarian script, what you need to say perhaps at the beginning, and a checklist of things to look for as a grammarian. But yes, you're looking for not only grammatical mistakes, but also great uses of vocabulary and grammar. The grammarian usually gives that word of the day, a vocabulary word, where you define it, say what part of speech it is, and use it in the sentence, maybe repeating it a second time so people can absorb what it is. And then creating in the chat box, or if you're having a hybrid meeting that's in person as well, a printout of the word so that people can see the word. It reminds them to use it. And then at the end, when you give your report, you give a report that includes who used the word of the day, perhaps how many times. Our club is very competitive on using the word of the day. So that's looking at grammarian and word of the day. The timer is also a good starter role, but at our club, I always suggest that, well, when we had in-person meetings, that you have an experienced timer sitting with the new timer for the first or second time. It just gives a little bit of reassurance, and when things get a little bit complicated and the watch doesn't stop or start, it doesn't affect the speakers, the evaluators, or the table topic session. So I always like to put an experienced timer with a new timer and help them as they go along. This is especially good in contests. You're going to have an experienced timer do that contest timing, but then take a newer person, a newer member as well, and have them assist you so that you can compare times and that they learn the role. Now, Toastmaster provides timing cards like shown in the picture, timing lights. You might have those in your clubs. And now that we're working digitally, you have timing backgrounds. Also, they provide a timing app that you can use to automatically show the times for speeches, table topics, and evaluations. One thing I want to add about timer. The timer is also responsible for helping the general evaluator and helping the Toastmaster keep the meeting to time. So if suddenly you have a general evaluator that's going on and on, or a Toastmaster and the transitions are a little bit long and you're noticing that we still have evaluations to do and a wrap up of the meeting, hey, it's the timer's role to perhaps hold up a yellow card just to let the speaker know, oh yeah, I need to kind of get this going. I've got a little bit sidetracked. Keep on time. The timer also should explain why timing is important, because this does transfer to our work lives. And then after each section, the timer gives a little summary of the name of the person and the amount of time that they used. Table topic speaker is another great first time kind of role. But of course, if you're not ready and you want to keep observing for a few meetings, just pass. It's no problem. But the secret of table topics for new members, hey, and for old members, is to do not answer the question in the first sentence you say. This is all about teasing your audience and keeping them listening to the very end. So start by telling a story, try to incorporate humor, and then in the last bit of your time, once you've seen the green light or the yellow light after 1.5 minutes, then start wrapping it up with the answer to your question. That makes for a very interesting and entertaining table topics. If you are the table topics speaker, and it's likely because you haven't taken any role in the meeting. So as a new member, just know if you haven't signed up for Counter or Grammarian, chances are you're going to get picked to take a table topics speaking role. And of course, speaker. We would like all of our new members to do their first speech, which is an icebreaker, in the first month or two. And until you feel comfortable getting ready to do that first speech, then certainly take those other leadership roles so that you're sure to speak at every meeting. Of course, for all of us, a successful meeting is one where everyone speaks and everyone participates. So engage yourself as a new member, and experienced members make sure that every member speaks at every meeting. Topicsmaster is one of those roles that you might, as a new member, want to wait for a little while before you wear that hat. But there's lots of information about being the table topics master, including a script, keeping track of who spoke on what. In our club, we usually have time for 3 or 4 questions, but always prepare 5 or 6, just in case a speaker doesn't show up or there's some reason that you need a few extra questions. Table topics master always repeats the question twice, pauses, lets everyone absorb it, and then chooses someone who does not have a speaking role, a member who does not have a speaking role. It could be a member who has a very small speaking role, or it could also be a guest. But allow that guest to see how table topics works before saying, oh, do you want to do one? And they're thinking, I have no idea what a table topics is, so no, don't scare me to death. So allow it to play out, and then ask the guests, once they've seen it, hey, would you be interested in taking that question? And of course, again, always say, it's okay if you don't want to. Evaluator, very important role in the club. And this is, again, something that a new member should wait to be an evaluator until they've completed, I would say, at least 1 or 2 speeches. Evaluations benefit everyone. They benefit the speaker, but of course they benefit the entire club membership, because we're listening to see, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that, was a really good point that they did, or this is something that they could make their speech even better, or perhaps they could try this. But in evaluations, you should always find something that the speaker can do better, something that they, perhaps a missed opportunity, and suggest on something that they could do, or even something they did really well, and maybe you could add value to that by adding on this other layer. Always give something to the speaker. Even experienced speakers are very interested in how they can make their presentations better. General evaluator. Well, the general evaluator and the Toastmaster are what I call the dynamic duo, because they support each other for the meeting. It's not just the Toastmaster who's running the meeting, but the general evaluator is their wingman. You can find out a lot about what the general evaluator does in these resources, but in fact, the evaluator is responsible for really organizing the functionaries to make sure that they're at the meeting, that they have the information that they need, they have their evaluations for their speakers. This is something that even in a digital world, we could follow up on as experienced Toastmasters with the evaluators and the speakers. Do you have that person's evaluation? Do you know what they're looking for? So an evaluator works with the evaluators and all the functionaries. The general evaluator gives feedback during the meeting to the evaluators on things that perhaps the evaluator overlooked in the speaker that would be amiss in not bringing up. The general evaluator also gives feedback about the entire meeting. So a very important hat to wear and a very good supporting role. And finally, the Toastmaster, well, that's the person who runs the meeting. And just remember, new members, this won't be a role you'll take your second week, your second meeting. However, it's something that you can watch and observe. And when that time comes, make sure that it is your meeting. I've been in too many meetings where kind-hearted Toastmasters keep interrupting that new Toastmaster, that rookie Toastmaster. Just ask your mentor or maybe your club president, you know what, if I forget to call for the evaluators, could you just raise your hand and do a point of order? And then never apologize as Toastmaster, just keep going and try to laugh about it. But there's a Toastmaster script, and if you follow the agenda, you'll be set. So here, I'll just pause for a moment to ask for any questions about meeting roles that you might have as a new member or even as an experienced. So the resources that are all spoken about are found on toastmastersinternational.org, or you can simply Google counter script or Toastmaster script on the internet, and you'll find one from a wealth of clubs all over the country. I have a question for you. Who is responsible for your agenda in your club? Who is responsible for making sure the agenda is full in your club? In our club, it is, go ahead, Carol.
One of them, well, we've got two of them here that say Toastmaster. I know that planning the agenda often falls to the Vice President of Education. So it kind of depends on how they work together.
Mm-hmm. And the VPE, yeah, the VP of Education. In our club, we decided, and that's our club culture, which we'll talk about in a little minute, just the way your club runs. We said, you know, if you were at work, you wouldn't have someone else in charge of your agenda, probably. If you're the leader of that meeting, then you would be in charge of the Toastmaster, double checking that people are going to show up, that you have introductions, that you have evaluators, that you have all of the components in place, including potentially a backup speaker. And the Toastmaster verifying with the general evaluator. Great. Thank you, everybody, for your comments there. And again, if you can think of another, good, we've added a backup speaker to our agenda. That's great, Diane. Yeah, we've done the same thing at Henderson Toastmaster, because the fact is people have things that come up. They're not able to attend for some reason last minute. Normally, we should be able to, if we know that we're going to be unable to attend, we need to delete our name off that speaking role or taking ourselves off the agenda and letting the Toastmaster know as well by email. Great, Anita, right. GE verifies with helpers and confirms with the Toastmaster. So this is all helpful ways of supporting your Toastmaster when you have a functionary role. Now, where are there some leadership opportunities in Toastmasters? Well, within your club, as a new member, eventually, if you're interested in taking an office, this is something that Toastmaster asks you to do as part of your leadership criteria or skill set that you will, as you continue processing yourself through the journey. But yes, a club officer role, and then eventually an area or division officer is another way of helping not only club members, but in groups of clubs or groups of areas in order to meet their Toastmaster goals. There are many ways of receiving recognition for your accomplishments. So as a new member, your club might be offering ribbons. We certainly did when we were meeting in person, especially for the icebreaker. And many also give special recognition at each meeting for best table topics, perhaps best speaker or best evaluator. And then pins also in our club, for example, we give a special round pin for anyone who completes all 9 leadership roles. So if you've done everything from Toastmaster all the way down to counter, then you get a special pin. So that's encouraging people to try every role. Here too, in the chat box, if you have any ideas of how you show recognition in your club, could you just chat it in? And as you're doing that, because there's loads of pins, certificates, and all those good things, there's also, from a digital point of view, how many of you are taking advantage of the badges that Pathways offers? Can you include it or wave at me or thumbs up? Because I think this is something that we could do better on. I know in our club, I think we could. You know, if you've got someone who's just done their icebreaker, you can show recognition to that member to member. If they've given an incredible speech, give them a badge on courage. If they've run a membership drive, give them a special badge. So these are things that are available within Pathways. Check it out and start giving, you know, some gratitude and thanks to your fellow members. We also receive level certificates when we finish a pathway level. So we can print those out and maybe in your club, begin presenting them either in Zoom or somehow through your hybrid meeting. Many clubs have certain expectations or policies, but generally you really learn by doing and watching and the various resources. We already talked about signing up and then show up for the meeting, but definitely make sure that you include the fact that you can invite your friends, your work colleagues. They become guests who will become future members in this time of pandemic when new membership is a challenge. Although now that we've done Meetup, we should see more and more guests. But just remember to have some fun and laugh. Now about club culture, certain clubs do certain things. I mean, can you write in the chat box if you have any special prizes you offer? Any special deals on membership, any times you have certain celebrations, whether it was in pre-pandemic times or now, hybrid meetings or just on Zoom. And we also already answered the question about who fills in the agenda, who makes sure that the agenda is there. That's also part of club culture. Oh, that's great, Diane. We have a recognition minute at the end of the meeting to recognize people who have done something special, including birthdays. That's nice. Anyone else? And you can also unmute and say it out loud if that's easier. Bragging rights at the end of meeting. And that's great because it gets everyone speaking again. What do you give the pencils for? Gavel pencils. Yeah, Alan, do you want to unmute and talk to us about why we give gavel pencils? It might not be easy, so I can say why that is. We give gavel pencils to rookie Toastmasters. So the first time Toastmaster, we give them the little gavel pencils that you can order from TI. They love that as recognition for being your first time Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dorothy. I finally got unmuted.
Any others that you want to speak about?
Dorothy, one of the things that we do in my home club is when we have a first-time Toastmaster, once they present their icebreaker, we give them a Toastmaster pin so that they can wear it proudly. And when people ask them, well, what's that about? Then they can say, well, I gave my icebreaker. It's also a chatting up point.
Great idea, Carol. Other ways that in your club that you're recognizing the achievements of your members or special offers. You can unmute.
Hi, this is Sandra Benson from Summerlin Toasters. We send out love notes during the meeting. So we have these little pre-printed things, and then somebody gives a speech or they do a really interesting table topics. Instead of interrupting the meeting, they just anonymously or not anonymously write a love note and would like pass notes during the meeting. So creating at the end of the meeting, you might come out there with like 10 love notes from some of the members in your club. And some people have jars at home and they put all their love notes in the jar. So when they're having a not so great day, especially during coronavirus, and they want a little uplifting message, they open up the jar, pull out one of those love notes, and it kind of gives them a little smile for the day. So it's a great way to like not only lift up the members, but it's a great way to have memories from your meetings. And when you're not feeling great, go to your happy jar, so to say, open up a love note and get a little positive reinforcement.
I love that idea, Sandra. I know Toastmasters also provides those sheets where you can give little feedback notes for Toastmaster, for speaker, everyone. I think that's such a great thing as well. Just giving people a little uplifting note, not always even a bit of criticism or constructive comment on that note, just something uplifting, because isn't that what we all need, and especially now? To answer someone's question in the chat, we give that gavel pencil when they're the first time Toastmaster in that head leading of the meeting role, because it's got the gavel, so there's the significance. Something else we do in our club is about dues. You know, we want our new members to join for a year. We want all of our members to join for a year. So as a little sly way of doing that, we offer half-price dues, half-price club dues, if you join for the entire year. So for example, our dues are $2 a month. So for 6 months, they'd be paying their Toastmaster dues and $12 of club dues. However, if you join for an entire year, it'll be your Toastmasters dues for the year, but only $12 of club dues. And occasionally, if we really want to encourage people, we might say, look, if you complete level 2, we're going to give you your Toastmaster name badge. $6 is what that costs. So we try to give incentives that way. Anything else that comes to mind? Alan mentions the levels completion certificates are sent to the members, and then we also recognize them in the meeting. Anyone else?
I have a question about paying dues. Can you pay dues ahead then on the Toastmaster website? Can you pay them ahead to Toastmasters?
I have noticed that there are times when you can pay the entire new member due for 1 year. Sometimes it gives 6 months or 1 year as an option. So you can pay those dues. If for some reason the computer doesn't allow you, then you just have to keep track as your treasurer that that person has prepaid for the next 6 months or for the whole year. And then
Okay.
at the right time you do it.
Good point. Thank you.
And I would also, Jean, even add one more thing. You know how difficult it is through that July 1st period? You want to make sure you have the 20 members, and then you have that March time when you're trying to frantically get your 20. The special 1 year offer is best offered in the fall. And that way, from your October 1st for an entire year, you're covered with that 1 year membership. So that's when it's the best time to offer that special deal, so that you're covered in that awkward March time, so that you've got your full year membership to the end of June 30th. that's just a suggestion.
Thank you very much.
A pleasure. So are there any other questions or concerns or answers? You know, as you're thinking about them or writing them in the chat, we've covered what your personal goals are as a new member or as an experienced member. Perhaps why, as an experienced member, are you taking this? Might be to give this presentation in your own club. We talked about the importance of a mentor, no matter what level you're at in Toastmasters, to keep you going. The leadership roles in every meeting, as well as leadership opportunities, and a little bit about club culture. Any other questions that you might have? I'm glad you jumped on too, Jennifer.
I have a question, Dorothy, and this is something that we've been dealing with in my club. We ask people to be mentors, especially experienced Toastmasters, and I sent around a list. People signed up to be mentors, and so when we got a new member, I assigned a mentor to the new member. And then sometimes what I'm finding is that the mentors really aren't following through with their mentees. And so how do you handle that? Like, what's the best strategy for addressing a mentor, or do you just reassign them a new mentor? Can you give me some ideas on that?
It's a great question, Sandra. We've had that situation too in clubs I've been in. You take the time as VP of Education, normally that's your role, to assign a mentor and a protege, a new member. Natalie, can you start off by just unmuting your mic and just tell me how you got me? Because I don't know how you got me as your mentor. What did you do?
Satira, the president, sent around an email and asked us to list out if we have a mentor or a mentee. And so I didn't write anything there. And then I sent her an email. She sent me an email and asked about a mentor, and I asked for you. And because I've seen your talks, and so she's like, oh, and that's pretty much how I selected, and that was the process for us. And then you reached out, and then that was it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it worked. It worked for you.
Yes.
And that's great news. Sandra's also got this situation, of course, when the mentor doesn't follow through. And that's a lot on a VP of Education too, because your role is pretty big and wide ranging. In one of our clubs, we had a special role called the person who looks after the mentors. So a separate role. So chairperson of the mentoring program. And by doing that, we had someone who could really follow up with the experienced members and to make sure that they are planning out with their mentee, their protege, now it's called, to get them through level 1 or level 2. And of course, it is a component of some of your levels is to do that. And that has to have some evaluation as well. Anita, do you have your hand up? Okay, unmute and go for it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, as VPM and VPE, I think we work in concert in several of our clubs. I belong right now to 4, but they work in concert when a new person comes in or even a guest comes in. And as far as assigning a mentor to a new member, I feel that could be counterproductive. And what seems to have worked better is when the new member is advised with the VPM or the VPE, either one, they're working in concert, to choose who they would like to be their mentor. And then have those two people chat together and see if they're a good fit. At that point, you go into the official thing of assigning a mentor. And we always tell everyone is a mentor, especially to a new person, but there's usually one specific mentor, but that has to be in agreement. We don't assign someone to someone because it might not be a good fit for some one reason or another. Could be scheduling. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Anita, because this is an issue in a lot of clubs. And Sandra, I would also encourage, when we do get back to hybrid meetings or together meetings, that in the past, we've always had the mentor and the protege sit together so they can chat, and they're already building a nice relationship that way.
Right.
They know it's for a finite period of time. I think that's important for the mentor to know, so that they do need to see their protege through a specific task, whether that's the completion of level 1 or what. Alan has added in the chat that, yeah, lots of follow-up is needed, because it's true, we lose too many new members because we're not giving new members that encouragement and that support that they need. So thank you for all of your questions. I'm going to look at this last slide now, because it's all about our new members and our existing members to continue to succeed. And how can you do that? What's the formula? Well, it's certainly participation at every single meeting. Acquiring a mentor, no matter if you're brand new or experienced, and to embrace pathways, because once you do these things, for certain you will be a very successful Toastmaster. I'd like to thank all of you for participating and for asking such great questions. I'd also like to thank Carol for hosting us, and I return control back over to Carol. Thank you, Carol.
I guess it would help if I